Good afternoon. It's Tuesday, and Tuesdays are Asia Days here on Think Tech Radio. I'm your host for Think Tech Radio's Asian Review program, and we are coming at you live from high atop the Think Tech Communications Tower in the American Savings Building overlooking Bishop Square, and we're looking right into Starbucks across the way here. And you're listening to us on KGU Radio 760 AM, the Wall Street Business Network. And we do get callers from other countries from time to time, and even if you're here locally, you can join us by calling 296-5467. Our topic today that we're going to be talking about is APEC. Okay, what really happened? And before we get to that, let's do a quick hit on the news, which undoubtedly will include some APEC information right here on Asian Review. And joining us for the news segment is Asian Review's legendary Bill Sharp. Here he is.
Well, thank you very much. Well, the big news in today's Star Advertiser is, well, did Hawaii really get as much money out of APEC as it expected? And it seems to be no. It was projected that there would be about 2,000 delegates and journalists in town, and the number really turns out to be somewhere around 1,100. So what will the long-term impact of APEC be? I think that remains to be seen, but hopefully, and some are suggesting already, it will change the face of Hawaii as a serious place to do business. Essentially, most commentary says that APEC was an attempt to counter China's increasing influence, be it economic and strategic. Yet, on the other hand, it clearly was an attempt to reduce the 9.1% unemployment rate in the United States. The U.S. thinking that by opening additional markets, especially to APEC economies that already absorb 60% of U.S. exports, that the unemployment rate could be brought down. And then there was the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which would create a multilateral trading system based on rules, etc. That seems to have picked up momentum, and we'll just have to see how that plays out in the future.
And we'll talk more about the TPP bill later on in the show here.
Okay. Strategically, the United States made it very clear it will play a role in Asia. At the same time that APEC was going on, interestingly enough, and most people said by coincidence, although I think that's kind of hard to believe, there was a major naval exercise going on about 60 or 70 miles offshore. After APEC, the president was off to the East Asia Summit in Bali, Indonesia, where he will be joined with Secretary of State Clinton. And both will then spend, the president will go on to Australia, the secretary will go on to Thailand and the Philippines. Clearly, the drumbeat is on Asia. Secretary Geithner, Secretary of the Treasury, at the APEC Financial Ministers meeting, made some pretty interesting points, talking about the need for Europe to recover. It also seems that Japan might be willing to play a role in helping Europe. Will China? It seems to be open to question. There's pros and cons about that. Would China's influence be used to somehow separate Europe from the United States? And of course, much of the conversation dealt with the exchange rate. The United States became pretty terse in some of its comments. The president was saying he was fed up with a lot of Chinese trade practices.
Yeah, that is pretty terse.
And the president is usually not quite that direct. Interestingly enough, where a lot of Asian economies say that they're going to increase domestic demand because they realize they can't be that dependent on Western Europe and U.S. As an export market anymore, the president of the Asian Development Bank made a speech where he highly questioned just how much Asian countries can increase their domestic demand. Secretary of State Clinton's speech on November the 10th I thought was very, very interesting. A key phrase that comes out of that, and I think we're going to hear this again and again, is we're pivoting towards Asia.
Okay, I like that.
Keep your ears tuned to that. I think we're going to hear that again and again as we work our way out of Iraq and hopefully Afghanistan. The pivot is on towards Asia. And of course, there will be more emphasis put on the Trans-Pacific Partnership, etc. She also delineated quite carefully a number of strategies the U.S. has in mind for dealing with Asia, be it bilateral, multilateral, trade organizations, etc., and also a big emphasis on protecting intellectual property, which I think is always a challenge. Near the end of her speech, she devoted a minute or two about pretty strong language about the relationship with Taiwan and calling it an important partner in both security and economic terms, interestingly enough. Although Japan says it's committed to TPP, I wonder, its commitment seems to be somewhat tenuous due to the resistance of Japanese farmers who, in my view, have been overly spoiled for a really long time. A couple other news items. Russia tells Japan, don't worry about the islands, let's just do trade, and then we'll settle the islands issue. Those being the Kuril Islands, north of the main Hokkaido, the northernmost Japanese main island.
Don't you love the Russians? They always have a good sense of humor, you know.
And just a couple other little things. The Occupy Wall Street movement, it seems to be getting people in China rattled. They're worried about an American export of this kind of
That's interesting.
demonstration. And finally, the Chinese have an idea to create a counter to the Nobel Peace Prize called the Confucius Peace Prize, but it seems to be running into a lot of opposition, and I don't think this is actually going to go anywhere, because there's this, at first it seemed to be a great idea, but now it seems to be running into obstacles, and I guess that's about all I have.
That's great, Bill. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
All of you out there, look for Bill Sharp. You'll see him frequently on Think Tech television programs, Asian Review, on both Alelo and OC16. And he is famous for his talk shows, interviewing various dignitaries having to do with international geopolitics and foreign policy. So thank you so much, Bill. We are back on Asian Review. Our program today, the APEC Windup. Okay. So what really happened? And we've got some terrific guests in the studio with us today. Again, as I mentioned, for those of you who don't know, Think Tech is broadcasting right downtown here. We are looking directly into the Starbucks on Bishop Street, high atop the American Savings building here on Bishop Square. And with us in the studio here is Ambassador Lauren Moriarity, who's here in her personal capacity. And for those of you who don't know Ambassador Moriarty, Lauren, I need your voice on here. Could you just say hi so everybody can identify?
Aloha, everybody. It's nice to have a talk with you.
It's great to have you here, Ambassador Moriarty. And Ambassador Moriarty is a former ambassador to APEC and also the senior economic counselor for the U.S. Embassy in Beijing, formerly, and the U.S. mission in Taipei. And she is currently the Dean of Academic Studies at the Asia Pacific Center for Security Studies. That's a big, fancy name. And for those of you who don't know, that's the cool building right next to the Halikoa parking garage. And also in the studio with us is Mr. John Holman. So, John, you've been on this show before, but I'd love to hear your voice. So let's tune it up here.
Thank you, David. It's great to be back.
John is the Senior Commercial Officer for the U.S. Commercial Service, the Department of Commerce here in Honolulu. We're going to be talking about what happened at APEC, and for those of you who picked up the Star Advertiser today, right on the headline, it says, APEC boosts Isle's image as a serious meeting place. And we'll start off with this as a topic. John, what's the significance of this, and how did this come about?
Sure. Well, you know, we haven't really thought about it for some time since Hawaii was announced as a host for about 2 years ago in Singapore. But Honolulu beat out New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago, and San Francisco as the U.S. host. So it's a very unique opportunity. And I think that Hawaii was able to rise to the occasion and really become, in the world's eyes, a fantastic host, great place to do business, and really a hub of the Asia-Pacific region that we often hear locally. But to see it come together with the leaders of 21 countries was really remarkable.
You know, a lot of people, myself included, local people here, we noticed that the leaders as they arrived, no lays. We noticed that the president as he arrived, no lay. And the traditional that was thought there was going to be this phenomenal competition between aloha shirt makers like the likes of which the world has never seen, but no aloha shirts. And the final picture, they're all dressed
in business suits, right?
In business suits.
Absolutely.
What's with this?
Well, I think the president, with what's going on domestically in terms of the economy, wanted this to really be a business meeting, a real proactive engagement with the world's leaders. And I think it's great for Hawaii. It shows that Hawaii is a great place to do real business. And I think that's the image that we were hoping for.
Ambassador Moriarty, you were inside of some of these, a lot of these meetings. Did you notice the suit thing here in Hawaii?
Well, David, I did see the suits around, and part of that is the atmosphere for the official APEC meetings, which tends to be informal. But on the side of the official APEC meetings, there's a lot else happening, including bilateral meetings between leaders, which tend to be more formal as well, meetings with CEOs. So I think there was a lot happening, a lot of business being done, both official business as well as relationship building with both businesses and the private sector.
And we will get into that business a little later in the show, what was really done, what really happened. And I think what the piece that we want to communicate to the listener out here is the image of Hawaii that comes across is not so much the aloha shirt, it was the suit, and it was deliberate, right?
It was deliberate, but it was also, you can wear a suit and still have a lot of aloha, and I think that aloha was evident in every session, certainly that I saw.
That is something that many organizations here in Hawaii discussed as the challenge that Hawaii has, is overcoming the coconuts, the aloha shirt, the sea, the sand image. And I was stunned to see that final traditional picture with all the leaders, and I just assumed it was going to be in aloha shirts, right?
Right.
And what an image for Hawaii with the sun setting, the palm trees, but they're all in suits. There's more. We'll be back. Stay with us. You're listening to Asian Review. We are back. We're here on the Wall Street Business Network, and you're listening to ThinkTech Radio's Asian Review. You can join us at 296-5467. And we're talking about the APEC windup, what really happened. Was APEC productive given the burden on the community? And what are the deals of interest to the business community that actually were cut here? And in the studio with us, Mr. John Holman, the Senior Commercial Counselor from the U.S. Commercial Service, Department of Commerce, and Ambassador Lauren Moriarty, in her personal capacity here. Lauren is a former APEC ambassador and the Dean of Academic Studies at the Asia Pacific Center for Security Studies. John, let me go to you first, and let's give our listeners kind of a specific example of one of the deals that happened here at APEC for a Hawaii company.
Sure. So a number of local companies really had the opportunity to connect during APEC and do some real business, which is very exciting. And one of the stars of APEC from Hawaii is Sopaji. And many people, I'm sure, are familiar with this firm. They're world leaders in micro CSP solar technology, and so they were everywhere. They were at the CEO summit. Their CEO Darren Kimura was there representing the company. They had a booth at the convention center where delegates.
They vacuumed out APEC for all it was worth. Right.
They also they were in the Hawaii Business magazine that was handed out to all the delegates. They were on the television screens in all the hotel rooms. And during APEC, they connected with a Chinese partner.
No, was this planned ahead of time?
Not planned at all.
You mean there was a Chinese partner was here?
Right.
Sopaji was doing its thing.
Right.
And because of APEC, they connected.
And
how did they connect?
Well, they met at the CEO summit. I believe that's where they connected. They started discussing doing business together. It looks like a fantastic fit. They were so excited to do a deal. Unfortunately, they didn't have time to bring in the lawyers and actually line out the contract, but they were able to sign an MOU that they've agreed to work together to expand the company's footprint in China, receive some equity investment from the Chinese partner, which will allow them to do more business in China specifically and grow their company both here in Hawaii and in China.
Boy, that is just terrific. For our listeners who don't know, Sopogy is a company that earlier this year nailed a $500 million deal in Thailand. So this is a Hawaii company that is really starting to rock.
Absolutely.
And so, hey, what about Larry Stack? Did he do anything this particular event?
Sure. So another company known as CBI Polymers, under the umbrella of Sky Ventures. We met with the president this morning of that company, Larry Stack, and asked him what came out of APEC for his company. They also were out at many of the events and had booth space. And he said, as a matter of fact, there are investors in our office right now today discussing working together and helping the company to grow in their international business.
So there's a deal coming down for Decon Gel.
Absolutely.
Boy, let's talk a little bit about some of the real unusual moments that kind of took place here. What's one that comes to mind that you know about, John? Maybe something that the media didn't pick up at all.
Sure. One thing I think that was really neat was when the Chinese premier Hu Jintao arrived on Thursday morning. His motorcade came through Waikiki, and when he was pulling into his hotel, the streets were lined with hundreds of local people welcoming him, waving with signs, clapping, and waving the Chinese flag so that he felt welcomed. And that was something that I believe was spontaneous. One of my colleagues was there on her way to a meeting, got held up, and was just blown away to see this kind of warmth and aloha for one of the world leaders.
You know, this.
Dave, this is Lauren just chipping in, and that's one thing that was different from some of the other APEC meetings which I've attended, where often in the past they have completely shut down the city.
Okay.
And so we managed to have normal people walking down the street, and a motorcade would go through, and 10 feet behind, somebody would cross the street. And so I would guess that for a lot of these business people and leaders who came through, the ability to see some normal life in the streets and get a little bit of a sense of Hawaii as a normal place is something that's going to be different for them from other APEC meetings that they may have attended.
Very interesting. You know, Lauren, one of the things that we need to do here on ThinkTech is we need to send a big thank you to our law enforcement, our firefighters here in Hawaii, our police, and the United States military, and the Secret Service. I mean, you folks just did a tremendous, tremendous job, and I had occasion to be pressed in tight in a crowd, in other places, very dangerous situation with one of the leaders of one of the Asian countries. I mean, bodies squeezed tight together, and watch the Secret Service escorting the president of one of the countries there, and how hard and how dangerous it is that they work. So to all of you who helped make this whole conference so successful in the armed forces, in the law enforcement, the firefighters, police, translators, volunteers, everybody who helped from ThinkTech, Asian Review, thank you, thank you, thank you.
I'd also like to add, David, that the host committee, I think, did a phenomenal job. They really did. Everything went very smoothly. And the volunteers that came out from the community at every turn were there with a smile and showing aloha for all the delegates. And, I was in a suit, not my normal aloha shirt. And all of those volunteers were extremely welcoming and friendly and helpful. And they were doing this for no pay, to help show our community in a good light, and they did a fantastic job.
We're going to be talking about in this program, ladies and gentlemen, some of the big deals that happened. And there's some phenomenal things that we want to discuss with you in the balance of this program. But one of the comments that President Obama made was that something about no task being too big. And John, what was that all about?
Sure. So when he first arrived, and he had a special reception for all the world's leaders at the Hale Koa, he gave some remarks to all the distinguished guests. And when he concluded those remarks, he said something in Hawaiian, which was very cool. What he said was, "A'ohe hana nui ke alu ia." And what that means is no task is too big when done together by all. And it was really neat to see how he brought together a little bit of Hawaiian culture into these proceedings and recognize the importance of this place, but also the spirit of APEC and having all these world leaders here to partner together.
Let me just pick up on that if I can. One of the conversations I had with one of the trade ministers on the sides of that reception was talking about how he had been impressed by how Hawaii had included the host culture, the indigenous culture, in the proceedings. And so he had hoped to stay on to have some additional talks to see how his country could partner and learn from how Hawaii had shown respect to and involved its host culture in the broader tourism industry and now the higher level meeting culture.
Very interesting. No task is too big when done together by all. So Ambassador Moriarty, just quickly here, we're going to go to break. We'll talk about this further. Give us an example about one task that was accomplished that was a big deal in your mind.
I'd say just give you a couple real quick. One is, apart from the APEC official meetings themselves, there was great progress made on the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which was launched among 8 of the countries who were here, the economies, and interest expressed by Japan, who would also like to join. A second area which a lot of people don't pay as much attention to is the area of trade facilitation, making it easier, faster, and cheaper to do business by reducing regulations and making it just easier. And then the third area is green growth.
Was there a trade facilitation deal here that you could identify for us?
There were additional commitments made by the APEC member economies, building upon what they've already done, to do another, I think it's 5% within a down payment, and then additional total of, I guess it's 25%. Gosh, I've got to check here again. There are different numbers. I think it was 25% by 2015, and I'll check that number for you. And looking back to what's already been done in APEC under the first trade facilitation program, from 2007 to 2010, APEC members were able to cut $58 billion from the cost of doing trade by the facilitation and simplification measures that they adopted.
These are reduction in tariffs and...
That's not tariffs.
That's
things like clearing your customs through more easily.
Okay.
Unloading the ships a little faster so they're not paying as much demurrage. So it's making it easier and faster to do business. And so that's money that consumers don't have to pay, and it makes business more efficient. So those are just some examples. And then the last one I mentioned was in the green growth area, where there were a number of commitments made, including allowing environmentally friendly test vehicles to enter APEC economies duty-free.
Fascinating. For our listeners, I'll just let you know that we understand that the value or size of this new Trans-Pacific partnership is roughly 40% larger than the European Union. So this initial comment that we had at the beginning of this program about the United States pivoting from the Middle East into the Pacific, clearly this Trans-Pacific partnership is of enormous economic significance globally and to those nations here in the Pacific. And as I recall, John, before APEC, you were speculating that if Japan actually decided to come into the TPP, it would blow the doors off of Hawaii business, right? You remember that?
It'd be big, absolutely.
Absolutely big, and it is going to be big. We'll be back. Stay with us. We're back on the Wall Street Business Network, and you're listening to Think Tech Radio's Asian Review right here on KGU. And for all of our listeners out there, it's important that you know that a critical part of the Think Tech Foundation's mission is to illuminate Hawaii's bridge to Asia. And that's why Tuesdays are Asia Days here on KGU, and on alternate Tuesdays, you will find a discussion right here on important developments in international business. And then the next Tuesday, critical developments in foreign policy and geopolitics here in the Asia-Pacific region with Pacific Forum show called Issues and Insights, which will be next Tuesday. The cycle then repeats every week. Right before the break, Ambassador Lauren Moriarty, former APEC Ambassador Lauren Moriarty, was talking about the lowering of tariffs on environmental products from as high as 35% down to 5%. And Ambassador Moriarty, we got cut off right by the hard break there, and I think it's important that the listeners understand kind of which area of the business community that this is really going to help, this reduction of environmental tariffs.
Well, one of the focus areas this year was on supporting green growth and green jobs. So there were a number of decisions that were reached and initiatives launched to make it easier to trade and to buy and sell environmental goods. And of course, one of the focus areas for Hawaii is green growth and clean energy. So just as an example, among the commitments is to develop a list in the next year of environmental goods on which APEC economies will reduce tariffs to 5% or less by 2015. Also looking at eliminating non-tariff barriers to environmental goods and services. And so that will help to lower their costs to consumers and then increase the ability to disseminate clean technology and create more green jobs, we hope here in Hawaii as well.
Sure.
In addition, I mentioned earlier the initiative to try to make business cheaper, easier, and faster. And so another example of one of those initiatives is to make it especially easier for small business by exempting low-value shipments from custom duties and simplifying customs requirements and documentations. So I know a lot of our business people here in Hawaii who have tried to get a new product into market. This should be welcome news for them, I would hope.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's do this. We've got a lot of listeners out there, some of whom are in traffic here. Let me go to address to both of you and pick up first with John here. Let's go down at some of the activities that really drill down directly into impacting Hawaii or Hawaii business or things that happened. And we had a new, brand spanking new Secretary of Commerce come out here, right, John? And was there some activity that he was involved in that is directly relevant to business people here in Hawaii?
Absolutely. So we have the new Secretary of Commerce, John Bryson, and he was just confirmed by Congress about 3 weeks ago. This was his very first official trip as Secretary, and it was an opportunity for him to learn more about what's going on here in Hawaii from a business perspective and also participate in APEC. And so, as Lauren mentioned earlier, there's the bilateral meetings between the U.S. government and our counterparts, and so he participated in a number of those meetings with a number of our trading partners, but also we were able to get him out into the community to engage with some local companies.
And did you get him out to Kaimuki Middle School? Did you really do that?
He went to Kaimuki Middle in 7th grade, and so everywhere we went, he was introduced as a Kaimuki Middle graduate. Yeah. My next door neighbor actually this weekend said, "I heard your secretary went to Kaimuki Middle." Yeah. It was on the news, so that was great for him to share that experience with everyone. But we had a roundtable with Hawaii Pacific Export Council, which is made up of local business leaders and exporters, educators that are passionate about doing international trade. It was a chance for him to hear what they're doing here on the ground to help companies, and also for him to share an update from Washington. We also did a tourism roundtable at the state capitol with the Lieutenant Governor and the Secretary of Commerce and the Undersecretary for International Trade discussing how important tourism is for Hawaii. It's a great driver of job growth. 1 in 9 new jobs in the United States this year came from the tourism industry, and I'm sure that's probably even higher here in Hawaii.
Were there senior commerce officials that attended this this big export university graduation up at the University of Hawaii?
Right. Another event we had at UH was an Export University recognition event. Export University is a training program that we have to put local companies, train them to further develop their international strategy. So we had the Lieutenant Governor, Brian Schatz, as well as Undersecretary for International Trade, Francisco Sanchez, who's appointed by the President, there to recognize and congratulate the 67 participants in that program this year. And 4 companies received scholarships, which will send them overseas to the country of their choice, where they'll have a chance to meet with partners or buyers, distributors that we, the Commerce Department, set up for them.
This APEC week was just rich with stuff going on.
A lot. And there was a lot going on.
What about ethnic chambers? What can you tell the listener about ethnic chambers?
Right. I know that the Hawaii Indonesia Chamber was able to connect with the Indonesian president and some of the Indonesian delegation and match some local firms with some Indonesian partners, which was very exciting. I know the Chinese Chamber also had a program where they were matching some local green energy firms with some Chinese partners and government officials.
Any of the local companies able to attend some of these big, elegant receptions?
That was something that was really exciting, that really pleased me. Every evening there were receptions honoring the dignitaries that were here, and at every one there was a large number of local companies represented, participating, interacting with the foreign delegates as well as other local business leaders, and it was great to see them at each of those events.
John, in any of these bilateral discussions, did you ever see any senior U.S. government officials really pushing, trying to help a business deal go forward for the private sector?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, they discussed some of the high-level policy initiatives like Trans-Pacific Partnership, but I also sat in on some meetings where at the highest levels, our officials here from the U.S. government advocated for small businesses in the United States. Absolutely. And this came up in their discussions where they wanted to recognize some of these small companies that are bidding on projects in international markets.
Well, give us an example of one of them, for example.
There's a project, a $27 million project in Australia. And the Secretary of Commerce, in his meeting with his counterparts there in that country, raised the fact that this small company from the U.S. is bidding on that project. They're a great company, and we strongly support their bid. And the Australians appreciated that it came up in the discussion, and they had some feedback. So it was really neat to see small businesses represented at the table and their interests being brought up in conversation.
So some of the big multinational corporations, the CEOs came in here in their private jets and so forth. Did any of these ladies and gentlemen get out of the Sheraton or the Hawaii Convention Center to visit any sites for Hawaii business?
Absolutely, absolutely. One thing I heard time and time again from both other delegates from the markets that were represented and the CEOs, they'd never been here before to Hawaii. And they were so impressed, felt so welcomed, felt the aloha spirit. They could not wait to come back. One delegate commented to me, I want to come back here every year. I want to make this an annual tradition.
All right, but John, my question is, did any of those CEOs get out of the hotel and go to visit one of our Hawaii companies?
Yes. As, for example, the CEO of Lockheed Martin flew over on his private jet. And then when APEC was concluding, he flew over to the Big Island, where they have a project. They're looking to invest several $1 million that will create new jobs. And he admitted he never would have made that trip if he wasn't out here for APEC. And so this was one example. We saw this in a number of cases where CEOs came in, whether they're international CEOs or from the United States, and they're interested in doing business here, which is great news.
I want to talk very quickly about any other deals with any of the countries in Southeast Asia where I have particular interest that you observed or that you heard about.
Sure. One was the signing of the U.S.-Indonesia Commercial Dialogue between the U.S. government and the government of Indonesia to help facilitate more trade between those two countries. Another one was with Vietnam. The U.S. was supporting a bid by a U.S. company, an American company, to win a major contract with the government of Vietnam. The president of the Export-Import Bank stepped into that meeting, which is a government agency to help.
I mean, he wasn't in the meeting, and
he wasn't. He was actually outside the room on his BlackBerry, and they were talking about this deal, and they needed some assurance in terms of financing, and so they pulled him into the meeting, and were able to help move that
So
deal
let me see
forward.
if I understand. This is an American company that's going to get a big infrastructure project deal with the Vietnamese government.
Yes.
That is huge, ladies and gentlemen, because that means that an American company is pushing aside state-owned enterprises, for the most part, out of China that have been getting most of the infrastructure projects in Vietnam.
And as soon as they get those projects, they're creating new jobs.
That is just totally awesome. Ambassador Moriarty, I want to go over to you. Can you tell us anything about the APEC travel card? I'm really interested in that because I'm tired of getting visas.
The APEC travel card is a frequent traveler, business trusted traveler card that has been in effect in APEC for many years, that makes it easy for business people who are frequent travelers to go through a speed line at the airport, not have to apply multiple times for business.
That would get
visas.
me through the same time as you in the diplomatic red line.
Absolutely.
Right,
In fact, they're often the same line.
That's right.
And the president signed some legislation while he was here that will allow the United States, one of only 3 APEC members who had not actually joined the APEC Business Travel Card, to start participating in that. So American businessmen can easily now apply for an APEC Business Travel Card. The instructions to begin with are on the apec.org website, as well as other information for travelers, business travelers to the Asia-Pacific region. And we hope that that will also be a prelude to making it easier for business travelers to come to the United States.
Absolutely.
There's some talk
gotcha,
already on how to do that for Korea and Singapore.
I gotcha. All right. We've got more to come on the APEC Windup. Stay with us. We are back here on the Wall Street Business Network. We're illuminating the bridge to Asia, which is part of the Think Tech mission. And we've got with us in the studio former APEC Ambassador Lauren Moriarty and the U.S. Senior Commercial Officer from the U.S. Commercial Service, Mr. John Holman, here in the studio. We started out this program, Lauren and John, we were talking about the front page of the Star Advertiser. And it's talking about APEC boosts the aisle's image as a serious meeting place. It's today's paper, and we talked about the wearing of suits. But one thing right here in the first paragraph, some kind of doubt that the dollars generated weren't what they anticipated in terms of tourism. And yet throughout the course of this program, we have highlighted some, not all, of the phenomenal accomplishments the course of this conference, and there's more to come, ladies and gentlemen. And I just want to ask Ambassador Moriarty, would you mention something about U.S. Hawaii companies getting some promo from the USTR website? What is that all about?
Well, actually, Dave, it's interesting. There's a lot more to come. We definitely shouldn't be looking at what's happening this week as the end. This is the beginning.
Why do you say that?
I say that because it was the beginning of our folks getting to taste international business and international relationships.
By our folks,
here
you mean
in Hawaii,
the local businesses.
Here
okay.
Not just businesses.
Okay.
It's an opportunity for our state, our people, our companies, our students to start to understand about what's happening in that broader world, see where they can make relationships, and some of them will make business deals, and some of them will make cultural connections, and in some cases our children may decide to study new languages that will open up new opportunities for them that they might not even have thought about
You are absolutely
had we
right.
not had APEC here. So I think it's the beginning in that sense. It's also the beginning in the exposure that Hawaii got to the rest of the world. So a minute ago, John was talking about some of the companies. I was looking at the U.S. Trade Representative's homepage, and we have 2 companies from Hawaii featured on the homepage of the U.S. Trade Representative.
In Washington.
This is the U.S. government in Washington, our U.S. Trade Representative that does our deals. In addition, there was a lot of coverage available here. So I think that really it is the beginning. Maybe you can compare it to there's a feast somewhere out there, a wonderful banquet table.
Okay.
And
you're making me hungry already.
Yeah, and maybe didn't even know it was out there. And we cook pretty good food at home. Tastes good,
Sure.
Plenty good. But now we've tasted it, and it may take us a little while to figure out which of the tastes we especially like and suit us well. And then we're going to have to learn to savor it and maybe how to make it ourselves. And then we're going to have to learn how we add our own special something to it. So I think of that in terms of the opportunities here. We're not quite sure yet where this will go, but we have the opportunity to taste that banquet, that bigger banquet. And we may decide we like our own home food better, but we have more opportunities now to try new things, make new connections, and come up with more creative business and education and cultural opportunities.
Ambassador Moriarty, that is awesome. That is totally awesome. I'm sitting here listening to you, and I'm thinking about opportunities, and a lot of people say, well, APEC is gone. It's only once every 21 years here in the United States. Next time it'll be in Los Angeles or Seattle or wherever. It'll never come back to Hawaii again. But I think what you're saying is that this was a wonderful buffet banquet that maybe will cause people in Hawaii, whether they're business, academia, or otherwise, to seek out additional opportunities for other conferences. And it might be to go to APEC in Vladivostok in Indonesia the following year, or other conferences. I mean, John, what do you think?
Absolutely. My email and phone messages are way backed up right now with companies that are super excited. One company left 3 messages for me this morning. They can't wait to go to Japan. That's their next target market, and they want to expand their business there. Another company is looking to get into the Korea and Malaysia markets. And I think APEC helped to raise the awareness and enthusiasm level for pursuing these opportunities, and it's really exciting.
So the question is, what can companies do? You mentioned earlier, was it just serendipity that brought Sopogy together with its partner? And it happened to be the case this time. But next time when somebody goes on a business trip or gets involved in PEC, the real key will be how to set it up ahead of time so that you've looked to see in the website who's in businesses that might be of interest to you. You've called John's office to contact the U.S. Embassy's commercial section in a country you think might be interesting to you. You've looked at your website to see if it's a website that would appeal instantly to the market you think might be a good target market for you overseas. And so if you start thinking, if all of our small businesses, medium and large here in Hawaii, or academic programs, start thinking like that now, then in future encounters that either happened at a business meeting or that they themselves choose to pursue, they can up their opportunities for success in partnering.
Very profound. Very good. I know that I've talked probably with both of you from time to time that I have been an international business lawyer here in Hawaii for many, many years. And one of the big difficulties I've observed is that the Hawaii business really had a hard time mentally thinking beyond the reef. And in fact, we had a famous radio show here some years ago called Beyond the Reef. And I mean, do both of you see that this kind of a self-imposed restraint that kind of blown the barriers off mentally, that we'll start to see more Hawaii business kind of following the Sopogy example? Do you see this?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think, as I said, the enthusiasm is there, and many of these companies had representatives where they were out at the receptions and they met some of the delegates and were connecting with the Hong Kong delegates or companies, or Malaysia or Indonesia, even Chile or Peru, and they're really excited about going after these markets. One of our officials from Washington commented that from 2005-2009, U.S. companies that did not export saw their revenues decline 7%. U.S. companies that did export saw their revenues increase 37% over the same time period.
Jeez.
A difference of about over 40% in terms of revenue. So we look at international opportunities. I think getting the word out there, and APEC helped to plant that seed in many local companies' minds about the opportunities that international markets offer.
Let's end this discussion here that we've had this afternoon with some more on the Trans-Pacific Partnership, because we want to make sure the listener understands that this is an enormous trade deal that has phenomenal ramifications for business in the United States, in the participating countries, as well as here in Hawaii. And I guess we've talked about the participating companies on other programs, the United States, Australia, Brunei, Chile, Malaysia, New Zealand, Singapore, and Vietnam. And now we talked about earlier in this program Japan coming in, which John, this is the blow the doors off Hawaii business opportunity here. And during the APEC conference, I heard something about Canada now expressing an interest.
Right. Canada and Mexico have both expressed interest in TPP.
Something maybe about the Philippines, possibly?
Lian John, the president, former vice president of Taiwan, also mentioned interest.
We have run out of time here. We have more to talk about. This is David Day for Asian Review. I'll see you with Pacific Forum's Issues and Insights next Tuesday. Drive safely. Let's just have kind of a quick little post-mortem here on things that we could have covered. We didn't have enough time to.
I had a clincher of what I was going to say at the end, which was essentially that APEC created opportunities for our state, our people, our companies, and our students, and it's up to us now on how we use them.
Right. That's a great point.
That was my clincher.
That's a great point.
Lauren, what did you see was the student piece of this, the young people? Because
there was a great student piece. I had to recuse myself from a lot of some of the pieces of it because I'm still a federal government employee, but I'm not in the Commerce Department or involved in that. But some of the parts that I did is I got involved with the model APECs and speaking to students at I spoke at, I think, about maybe 4 schools around town.
This is during last week?
No, this is during the build-up to this period.
Okay.
And it was so exciting. These kids were just wonderful. It was mostly high school students. There was a model APEC here that Pacific and Asian Affairs Council put on. And then there was another one that was done on the Big Island, bringing public school, charter schools, Hawaiian language immersion schools, private schools together. And you saw these wonderful, bright, enthusiastic kids who were busy studying about the different APEC economies, role-playing on some of the difficult issues that the leaders are wrestling with, and thinking about how would I cooperate if I were representing Japan and you were representing China and you were representing Indonesia. And so, to my mind, one of the most important things that happened during this whole period was our next generation getting excited about the opportunities.
That's awesome,
overseas.
when you think about it. I mean, just my daughter has a friend who was the U.S. high school senior this year from Punahou that represented the United States in a program in Japan this summer, and another one that represented the United States in a program in Singapore, and it has a picture with arm around the shoulders of Tommy Koh in Singapore or something like that. But and then the girl that went to Japan was selected to sit in the front row when President Obama was talking, and one of Hillary Clinton's speeches.
Well, the same happened here, David. I mean, it was new. They brought in some of the young people to participate in some of the official things. There was also a Voices of APEC delegation that was young people that came and had meetings around town throughout this whole week.
Were these just American kids?
Oh, no. These were from the different APEC economies. And, for example, in the Voices of APEC, Kamehameha Schools hosted from the local community here, and there were kids from a number of the other APEC economies. So they were together in briefings and discussions around town. You may have seen the paper in the Honolulu Star Advertiser showing their kickoff session with the mayor. They also came down to the Asia Pacific Center for Security Studies, where I work, and Admiral Walsh came down from Pacific Command and talked to them, and they just had a great discussion about a lot of the issues in the Asia Pacific region. So again, to me, this excitement of the young people and their awareness of what's out there is really one of the big takeaways. It's not only in the business sector.
Wow.
The other thing I was interested in, I mean, that's, one of our big opportunities in education. And so if you get these young people excited about coming to Hawaii and seeing an opportunity to study here and to mix and mingle, this is good too.
It's a great export for
Yep.
us, tourism. I'm sorry,
Education services. Yeah.
This is what we're listening to is the following program that comes on KGU. So we're going to shut that off just a second because I got something I want to ask you about these students. So I don't want to leave this topic here, but let's pull the plug on this first. Lauren, I guess
We got it.
okay. Lauren, on the student piece of this, the part that I wanted to ask you is, what? I mean, as parents, we're all thinking about, will our children, can our children come back to Hawaii? And in this whole excitement, enthusiasm, and mental engagement that you observed, was there some kid somewhere that had a sparkle in the eye about a career?
Yeah, there were a whole bunch of them. I met dozens. It was great. Dozens of them that were just thinking of ideas about how they might get involved in all different kinds of things, international business or education or exchanges or diplomacy, just all kinds of ideas. I think, the other part of it, too, is there was a lot of very interesting discussion at the CEO Summit, including some of the leaders and some of the future Flash presenters, about moving to a new era. Not when we think about the agriculture era and the industrial era, and we sometimes talk about a knowledge era, but one of the speakers talked about a creativity era. And so if you think about it in that way, creativity can happen anywhere, and it requires bringing people together. So that's something that can happen in Hawaii.
Yeah, it had not really occurred. I mean, the bringing the people together, but I had not really thought of this concept of creativity and the gathering place as a concept brought together until you just mentioned it, which I think is very, very profound. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was having a conversation with my daughter last night, and she's a junior in high school, and we were talking about Steve Jobs, and kind of the I was trying to understand, or we were trying to communicate, or kind of talking together as a family. What is the impact that this man had on the world? And you get the Thomas Edison type examples or whatever. And so my daughter was really quiet, and she said, "Wow, without Steve Jobs, my generation, we wouldn't be anywhere. Because everything we do, the way that we learn, the way that we communicate, the way that we think," these are her exact words, "has been a consequence of this man." And it was like, boy, you talk about, I mean, it wasn't said maybe as articulately as someone else, but the concept and the feeling was there that her generation owes everything to that man.
I want to look back for a minute. Hawaii was a place of modernity. If we think about King Kalakaua, first palace to have electricity,
That's right.
indoor plumbing, a man who went to see Thomas Edison because there was a new invention he wanted to know about and bring back to Hawaii. So this is not new for us. We just have to remember, in some cases, if people have forgotten. We have a tradition and a history of innovation here, of listening to new ideas, of being able to get along with lots of different people and take the best of their customs and make them our own. And so I think that there is opportunity for that.
Boy, you talk about an awakening that occurred over the last several days, huh? And I know that both of you you work like dogs, for the last several weeks. I know John and I know from trying to get a hold of you, Lauren, that you were working like two dogs, but both of you kind of represent the unsung heroes of this whole this whole exercise. The media picks out a few things, but boy, when you start going down through the laundry list of the things that happened of direct benefit for Hawaii business, the local people here, the image of Hawaii. I mean, this was the international conference that really raised the curtain, I think. I mean, boy, won't it be fantastic if we have some Hawaii companies? Can you imagine having Hawaii companies and they're coming to John Holman and they're saying, "Now, John, we saw what happened in Hawaii here and with this APEC thing, and we kind of want to get set up for Vladivostok next year." And it's like, Hawaii companies going to Vladivostok? I mean, wouldn't that be cool?
Actually, there were already, I think, a few discussions about Vladivostok wanting to learn from Hawaii. One other thought that I wanted to maybe leave is, where can people find out more information, either about what happened over the last week or keep in touch with some of the things that are going to be happening? So I think there are a number of good websites out there. One is people can check the APEC website, the official website at apec.org. There's a lot of information there on what the different working groups within APEC will be doing.
That's great. And John, the last word goes to you.
Any questions?
1 minute?
I think it was momentous for Hawaii, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to host. I think Hawaii shined. I think the host committee did a fantastic job. I think the companies came out and made some great connections, and I think people are excited, and as Lauren said, this is just the beginning. So I think it's the beginning of a new day for Hawaii companies going forward, engaging internationally.
Thank you, and you've been watching Asian Review. Good night.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So you
Thank
can
you.
cut off.